2 Kings chapter 21. Manasseh. He's the longest reigning king and the most wicked king. Manasseh was 12 years old. Now let's go back to chapter 20, verse 6, about his father. In chapter 20, verse 6, God speaking, "And I will add unto thy days, Hezekiah, 15 years. So God adds 15 years. Here's his son, 12 years. Within that extra time, we have Manasseh. If God had not given Hezekiah the 15 years, there would have been no Manasseh. It would have been another son. He was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years. That's the longest reign in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hepzibah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. Judah, they had good kings and they had bad kings. This is a bad king. After the abominations of the heathen. Now, one of the things you find in abomination of the heathen, which we're going to read through here again, Jeremiah speaks about going in the woods, cutting down a tree and decking it with silver and gold, and you're making it so the tree don't move. That's Jeremiah chapter 10. Abomination of the heathens were to eat meat and stuff that the Jews were not to eat. Whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. The Hittites, the Hivites, and all those ites that were in the land before Israel. God removed them out of the land, gave it to Israel for the sins and wickedness of the nations. Adolf Hitler is no more in power. Germany is no more in power today because of what they've done to the Jew. Curse thee that curses you. England and America are falling fit through their sins. Not quite yet full. All right, here we go. I don't know how you want to number these. I don't know how you want to mark these, but watch what he does. For he built up again the high places, which Hezekiah his father had destroyed. So Hezekiah, his dad. Now let's get the thing is, we got a good king, Hezekiah. We got a terrible son, Manasseh. Not every good man produces a good son. Samuel was one of the good men of the Lord, but his sons were not right in the Lord. So what Hezekiah destroyed, these high places, Manasseh rebuilds. Almost comes across like a certain word with Manasseh, maybe. And he reared up altars, plural, for Baal. That is one of the highest deities of God, small G-O-D-S. Baal would be the highest deity. He's the god of the harvest. And you need food. And made a grove, as did Ahab, king of Israel. So now he's going back to what the sins of Israel. This grove is dedicated to Baal. I know Abraham made a grove, but he dedicated it to God. But that grove has turned into the false worship of statues and men. King of Israel, Samaria are all gone due to their sins by the Assyrians. Manasseh has already, and his father Hezekiah have already known, because the sins of Israel, they're no longer. They've been in captivity. And one of the things that Manasseh does, he picks up the religion again of Israel that angered God. And worship all the hosts of heaven. Now that's the angels and that's the stars. And we're going to get more clarity on that. But those high places were to go look at the stars. And they weren't used for navigation. They weren't used for times and seasons, Genesis chapter 1. Though a farmer can look up in the sky and say, okay, we're in the fall. This is what I need to do in the fall. Well, that constellation over there, that's the spring. That's proper. When you're on the ship and you're looking at those stars and you're trying to figure out where to go, that's proper. But when you've got high places and you are worshiping You are in error. You are in sin. You don't worship, when you take your child there and say, listen, you see those 3 stars out there? That is your,
Orion.
Orion. I was going to say Uriah. That's Orion. You're teaching your children the stars. You see that star up in the morning? That's the morning star, which is in the Bible. But when you bow down to him, you seek him, and you burn the incense to him, you do whatever you need to do to please those stars. Those stars fall in the realms of Roman and Greek gods much later on. And serve them. Well, how on earth do you serve a star? Food, incense, worship, idols. He built altars, plural, in the house of the Lord, in the temple. He has changed the house of God, and he's had all kinds of altars in it. Of which the Lord said about the temple, in Jerusalem, so he's right in Jerusalem doing this, will I put my name, God's name, Jehovah. So the sacred place of the Jews, Jerusalem, the temple, he has made it a house of Baal. He has made it an altars of to all the stuff. He's made it a church of the gods. He built altars for all the hosts of heaven in 2 courts of the house of the Lord. That would be the courts of the people and the court of the priests. He's maybe got a Libra. He maybe has a Virgo. He may have a Leo altar. He may have whatever the stars were named back then. Altars to them. In the house of the Lord. So there are altars, and there are more altars in God's house. That place has been perverted. And there are altars in churches today professing to be Christians. The great deacons. We're going to have a deacon appreciation week. We're going to have a pastor appreciation week. We're going to have the people that sit in the front row appreciation week. We're going to give some honor to the guy who makes the sign week. We're going to have all kinds of things for people. We're even going to have, the Baal bushes. And he made his son pass through the fire. That's Moloch. That's giving your children over to the fire, to the statue. Again, mechanically, those arms will throw the babies into the fire. That's where Genesis chapter 22, where God called Abraham and said, Isaac, your only begotten son. The devil would go up to God and say, God, you see what they're doing with their babies? You see what they're doing to Molech, which is me? I bet you your people won't give their children. You're talking about sending your only begotten son to save the world. Well, look at my people. They're down there doing it right now. You see that statue down there? You see that bronze statue? You see the fires? You hear the drums? Look what they're doing for me. This was a heathen practice. And observed times, what's that? Open up the paper and go to your horoscopes. I can't make this journey today because my stars and what the tea leaves and the bumps on my head say, don't have no journey today. That was going on in the White House a few years ago. I forget what years, with Nancy Reagan. Nancy Reagan would tell the Secret Service and the people under the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, who is the president, not Nancy Reagan, and some of the things that Nancy Reagan would have to do with the president would rely on with her psychic advisors. In America, in the 1900s, late 1900s. That's observant time. No, my husband can't go to that dinner because my tea said it's bad to go there. That's a proven fact. And used enchantments. Well, that's magical terms. That's the realm of magic. That's potions. And dealt with familiar spirits. Familiar, you recognize that word, familiar. That's where we get the word family. Spirits that they know. They would sit at a table with this big clear ball, and they would try to conjure their family. They would try to conjure people that they know who passed off. Right there. That's done today. It's called a seance. Trying somehow to reach the ghosts. They got that television program trying to find the ghosts and wizards. Well, we know what a wizard is. That's a magician. And I did a Google search. I forget, it was wizards and Christian or Christian and wizard. I forget which. You won't believe all the hits I hit. Number one was, get this, Google search 2019, today I did a search. How to be a Christian wizard. Number one search. And a whole bunch of other that where people advertise themselves as Christian wizards that will come and perform in your church. I didn't open anything up. I just looked at the headlines, whatever you call it, the rankings of the search. It was how to be one and how you can hire me to come into your church, and there were some videos and stuff like that you could watch. And God said that's an abomination by abominable king. And it happens 2019. We will take our tricks, our performers, and go over to other lands of people who've never known Jesus, and we'll give them the hocus pocus and card tricks for deceiving. Because all those tricks are the tricks of the eyes, the lust of the eyes. He wrought much wickedness. So how can you say magic and wizardry works with Christianity when the Bible says he wrought much wickedness? Wrought means to make, to do. Raw iron is when you take iron and you work it to be something. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of the Lord. Everything we just read. But it's okay to have Christian name attached to it. To provoke him, God, to anger. That's what God says about it. The same people say, well, the Catholics and their imagery and their idolatry and their statues, and I do hocus pocus for Christianity. God says, I hate them both. They both make me angry. What's the problem? You're mad at that God, while your God, small g's, are okay. You got a double standard. You got a double standard. And we go on. He set graven image. Notice the magic became before the Catholic imagery. That case. God said the wizards and the television programs and the magic kingdoms and all that. God put that first before the imagery and idolatry. He said a graven image of the grove. Now there it is. There's your grove. There's a bunch of trees, and in that grove is an image or a statue. Proper today, you'll see an image of Mary somehow, some way. And if you wash Mary, keep her clean, you get penance. That he made it. The king made it. He didn't have we read about a king, I forget which one it was. He goes, hey, priest, go get the patterns for this altar and make it and put it in the house of the Lord to the north. All right, that king said, hey, you go make it. This king made it own. He had his own hedge clippers. He had his own way. In the house of which the Lord said to David and to Solomon his son. This stuff is going on in the temple of God, built and set up by David and Solomon. And you got people who set up a majesty building for God, the temple of God, the church of God, and this junk is going on in those churches today. History repeats itself. There's nothing new under the sun, Solomon said. They've got it going on in the temple. It's going on in the church buildings today. In this house and in Jerusalem, which I, God, have chosen out of the tribes of Israel, Judah, will I put my name forever. And he has put Baal. He has put Libra. He has put Virgo. He has put, you name it, forever. Neither will I make the feet of Israel move any more out of the land. Israel's gone. Gad, half-tribe Manasseh, and Reuben are gone, but they were on the wrong side of the land. Judah's going bye-bye pretty soon. Few more kings, and they're going to Babylon. God's wrong, throw the Bible in the garbage. No, they'll be settled in the land under Jesus Christ, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and the eternal new earth. Without sin, without the problems. I gave their fathers only if they will observe to do according to all that I've commanded. Oh, see, there's a condition. That land is promised to them as long as they obey God in the law, the commandments, the statutes, and everything that God has said. They're not doing it. According to the law that my servant Moses commanded them, that would be Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But they hearken not. So they're going, God is warning them right now. You're on the means of right now getting out. Your brothers up north has already gone. You know what they say? If the people will see a sign of God, if there would be a great earthquake where it's never happened before, if such the light of God would light to these people, the people were reading about, heard the voice of God, heard the lightning, saw a volcanic mountain that never burnt up. And still look what they're doing. They've seen God work all these wonderful, great signs and wonders and terrible acts in the land of Egypt, including one that you guys have light, but they didn't have light. I segregated your animals from their animals from disease and death. And look where they are today. I caused an army just to hear a sound, and they ran away from you, that you might have food. And that was North Israel. And look where you are today. This is the nature of man. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Not everybody goes to heaven. And they hearken not, and Manasseh seduced. That's a good word. There was a man in the book of Acts seducing the people. And he was a wizard in that magical stuff. And I'm trying to think what his name is. I can't remember. I think Philip.
Simon.
Huh? Simon. And Philip dealt with him. Chapter 7 or chapter 8 of Acts. Seduce, that's a very great word. Then to do more evil than did the nations whom the Lord destroyed before the children. Look at that remarkable statement God said. This king, this Jewish king of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob of Judah is even worse than the heathen. And he's doing everything the heathen are doing. It's like what the church is doing. The church today has got the Catholic in them. And the Lord spake by his servants and his servants, the prophets, saying, God has sent prophets to this man. God has sent servants to this man. God has sent street preachers to this nation. Better turn. You better get right. Because Manasseh, the king of Judah, had done these abominations, including the wizardry, enchantments, and seduction, and has done wickedly above all the Amorites, and they were wicked, did, which were before him, and has made Judah also to sin with his idols. Man, this is Jeroboam. Jeroboam's sin that made Israel to sin. Here is the sin of Manasseh that made Judah to sin. He's copycatting North Israel. They're going to be down for a fall soon. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, all Israel, Behold, I am bringing such an evil upon Jerusalem and Judah, that whosoever, that's not a good one, that's not a good whosoever, heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle. You know what God says about the church? He said about the church, they're going to heap to themselves, teachers have itchy ears. I was looking at here in verse 5 that courts, that's the first time that word shows up, courts. That's talk about the temple. That's the priest's division and the people's division. Remember, there was a separate area for the priests. Let's see if I missed any others. Thought there was some more. All right, verse 13. Bad 13. I will stretch over Jerusalem a line of Samaria. See? What you guys did in Samaria, what I did to them, I'm moving that line down. It's a line of occupation. I'm going to move it south. You're going to get what your sister got. And the plummet of the house of Ahab. He's done worse than Ahab. And I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth. The only other word, the time that wipeth shows up, that's the first place. Proverbs 30, verse 20. Here's a man doing dishes. God's using an illustration. Wiping, that's the only time that word shows up. Wiping it. And turning it upside down, upside, that's the first time that word shows up. So God says, listen, you know how bad I'm going to get you guys? Here's a man with dirty dishes. And when he washes that dish and he dries that dish, he turns it over. That's how clean I'm going to get you guys out. Judah and Jerusalem are going to be that plate, and there's going to be nothing on it. You guys are the residue. You guys are the leftover. You guys are the scum that's on that plate, and I'm going to wipe you all away. That's what he's saying. I will forsake the raiment of mine inheritance. You see, Judah was supposed to learn from Samaria. They're supposed to learn that they are going into captivity for their sin. You're not supposed to be doing what they're doing. You're not supposed to be doing what the heathen doing because you got the land because of what the heathen did. You're doing it. That's where the church is going to go, and God's going to get to the point he's going to say, I've had it. You got to call them home. And deliver them into the hand of their enemies. That would be Assyria for north. Babylon for south. And they shall become a prey and a spoil to their enemies. Because they have done that which is evil in my sight. Look at all the words. Evil, wickedness. They have done evil in my sight. God sees the evil just as well as the good. And have provoked me to anger since the day their fathers came forth out of Egypt, even unto this day. They've really not ever gotten right. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much. He's killing people. Till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another. That's a lot of deaths. Besides his sin, wherewith he had made Judah sin, and doing that which is evil in the sight of the Lord. So let's look at some passages here about him filling Jerusalem with blood. Numbers 35:33. Numbers 35:33. Towards the end of the book of Numbers, one chapter before the end, Numbers 35:33. So ye shall not pollute the land. How do you pollute the land? Plastic straws, plastic bags. Oh, get rid of plastic. No. Wherein ye are, where you are. It's going to be Jerusalem. For blood, it defileth the land. And the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. There's only one way to cleanse that land, that blood of Manasseh. You're supposed to capital punishment Manasseh. There's only one way to clean the land of America of the blood of murders, is you got to capital punishment the people that kill. You don't give them hotel comfort of prison. The law and the book of Acts and the Pauline epistles say if a man murder a man, you take his life. Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4. And we could go all night, but we're not going to. But this murdering, I can't get my Genesis chapter 4. Verse 8. And Cain talked with Abel his brother. And it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel's brother and slew him, murdered him. And the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel thy brother? He said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood. That's the first time blood is mentioned in the Bible. Crieth, that's the first time that word shows up in the Bible, unto me from the ground. And now thou art cursed from the earth, which opens her mouth to receive thy brother's blood. As long as a murderer is living, Genesis 9:6. As long as that murderer is living, the blood of that person that's been slain is crying out to God. That's in book of Revelation too, you know. We're not going to go there, but it says the blood of the saints cry out to God. Say, Lord God, when are you going to avenge us? Wait a little bit more. There's going to be a lot more bloodshed. Verse 6 of chapter 9 of Genesis. Whosoever sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. There it is. So only one way to clean up this blood in Jerusalem right now is Manasseh was supposed to die, according to the law. Back to 2 Kings 21:16. That goes true for America and every nation. They were supposed to grab Adolf Hitler, try him, and if he were to be found guilty, they were to execute him. And there are people saying today that he did not die the death he did. He actually lived more years after World War II. I don't know. But there are murderers in jail today in England and in America and other countries probably, and they have not been slain for killing somebody. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much. Look how the Holy Spirit put that innocent blood. Till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another. Man, just the length of Jerusalem, he's been killing innocent people. From one end to another. Listen, this is the same problem that America has with people going with guns and whatever they're doing to kill people in masses. It's happening with Manasseh. There's nothing new under the sun. It's called sin. It's called rejecting God. It's called going in after other gods. This is the gods of Manasseh. Kill, kill, kill. From one end to another, beside his sin. That's not bad enough. Besides his sin, wherewith he made Judah to sin in doing that which is evil in the sight of the Lord, just like Jeroboam. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh and all that he did, and his sin that he sinned, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? Manasseh slept with his father, so he didn't die being stoned, and was buried in a garden of his own house, in the garden of Uzzah. And Amon, his son, reigned in his stead. We're going to stop there. Because next night, Lord willing, we're going to go to 2 Chronicles, and we're going to finish the story about Manasseh. Because there's a remarkable story about this guy. So we'll pick it up, Lord willing, another night.